Hey guys, this is Coach Adrian with Blitz Kids, and today we're going to be going over the Poisonous Queen variation of the Scotch game. This is the last variation that I want to go over. These are like the main three. This is a rare bird. No one really plays this as black because if the white player knows what he's doing, then black can be the one that gets in trouble, and it does get tricky. So let's begin. E4, E5, knight F3, and now knight to C6. And the whole point of the Scotch defense, or excuse me, Scotch game, is to play pawn to D4 and have nice piece play. Here I have highlighted like bishop G5, bishop C4. You notice that these moves are very easy to play. Both bishops are able to get out, and White is able to move his knights to these very natural squares. And this is really cool. This is the whole point of the game, is just to get nice piece play. And so if our opponent isn't it doesn't know theory, then we have a good game, and if he does know theory, we still have a good game. We still have great piece play. So we already went over the queen bishop combo, the four knights variation, but today we're going to be going over the poisonous queen. So now that move starts after e takes d4, knight takes d4, queen to h4, targeting the e4 square again. And you'll notice that the queen is very aggressive here. Takes a very aggressive post, aiming at f2 and e4. And so white should play here knight to c3. And after knight to c3, we'll notice that the knight is just guarding e4, trying to protect the e4 pawn from the queen capturing. But after bishop to b4, he's still going to get away with this because of the pin. And this is something very common in the Scotch, is this bishop going to c3 to pin the knight to the king so it can no longer protect the e4 square. And before we do anything, I mean here, I would love to play knight takes c6. And then after b takes c6, play queen, bishop to d3. And now the queen can no longer take here on e4, right? Because then bishop takes e4. But unfortunately, with the queen on h4, this is a little bit different. So after knight takes c6, this is just a huge blunder because now queen takes e4. And so, like, let's say bishop to e2. Well, I could play queen takes c6, and then I have pressure here. I win a pawn that was on e4, and my structure is nice. There's no weakness there. I could also even take d takes c6, which is probably even more ambitious, more in the spirit of the black pieces for the Scotch, because now I have this coming down, I have this bishop maybe pinning here, so this is pretty good. So maybe even castle, but then I also have b takes c3, b takes c3. It's kind of hard to give up the bishop pair in that position. You don't have to, though, if you don't want to. You could also play something else, like just a queen move. And then maybe queen to g6, which maintains pressure here, puts pressure here, maybe even threatens bishop to h3 here. So you don't have to take, but if you do decide to take, I mean, this is also playable too. You ruin their structure, and your queen still has a nice post. Maybe knight to e7 here with the idea of just to castle to the king side. This is all possible variations. Or maybe even bishop to e6. Bishop to e6 seems pretty nice. Guarding this, stopping this rookie one idea to pin the queen to the king, and the queen can just move out of the way whenever she needs to. So all in all, if we go back, bishop e2 is, bishop e2 is the main move here, and not knight takes c6 because of that insert of queen takes e4 right here, and then game over. And just one last variation. Remember, this knight can't go here, but we can try queen e2 because, okay, we're pinning the queen to the king, so the queen can no longer go back. But after something like queen takes e2, b takes e2, we can even insert this move if we wanted to. We don't have to. Again, it just kind of depends on the flavor of the game that you want. After d takes c6, I mean, I have maintained my bishop pair. Both of my bishops are fine to develop. So this is fine for black. We want to give our opponent at least some trouble, right? So after bishop to b4, pinning the knight to the king, we have to play bishop to e2, and this starts a chain reaction here, and it's because of this move. We have to sacrifice the e4 pawn, the queen that goes to h4. We have to sacrifice that e4 pawn because, I mean, there's no other way to protect it. I mean, we can't play f3 here because, again, the queen is pinning the pawn to the king. So there's no other way to really protect this pawn. I mean, at all. Queen e2 might be an answer, but what happens after knight takes d4? You just drop a piece, right? So bishop e2, sacrificing the pawn on e4 on purpose, and instead we're going to get some nice piece play after the key move here, knight to b5. You don't want to play knight takes, oh, excuse me. You don't want to play knight takes c6. That would be silly. That just kind of gets back into the groove after queen takes c6 and puts pressure on c3. And then after something like bishop to d2, black is fine here. He's completely fine. There's no threats that you have. Look how passive your bishops are. You don't want that. Instead, knight b5, you want to keep the pieces on the board, and now you want to throw some punches at your opponent. Knight takes c7 is on the cards. Now, knight takes c7 is really tricky if your opponent is playing like a blitz game or something. He doesn't know what he's doing. He's in trouble because it looks like, oh, okay, well, all I have to do is defend, so let me play something like bishop to a5. All right, pause your video, see if you can find out this killer move here as white. What is the best move? All right, the best move here is knight takes c7 anyway. With the idea of, okay, well, you aren't really protecting the c7 score because after b takes c7, boom, knight takes e4, I take your queen. So the bishop on a5 is already doing something very important. So after this move, king to d8, let's say knight takes a8, we're better here. We're winning. And we're happy, right? So let's go back. So we can't play this move. We can't play something like bishop d6 again. This queen, or excuse me, this bishop is actually doing something. Now they can try b takes c3. They insert this move, and we don't play knight takes c3 because then we lose the threat. Instead, we play b takes c3 and force the opponent to play king to d8. So you're probably wondering, well, wait a minute, I don't want to move my king. Yeah, that's right. Nobody wants to move their king, but that's the only move. So there's another move like queen to e5, which protects c7 and maintains some pressure. It's doing a lot of things, even protecting here, maybe even threatening queen takes c3 in some lines, but there's a very simple refutation here. Go ahead and pause your videos and see if you can figure this one out. All right, so this one is a deflection tactic. The queen is doing too much. And notice this diagonal is pretty much taken away from her. So if we could play pawn to f4, which we can, then the queen is has to remove itself from the defense of c7. So something like queen to c5, and now knight takes c7, king to d8, knight takes a8, and we win the rook again. So our opponent has to play king to d8, and this is the only move to keep the material on the board. So yes, black has gained a pawn, but for that pawn, the imbalance is that you have a king that you're able to attack constantly. So we should castle here, continue the development, and that's going to be our basic rule of thumb here, is whenever you're attacking, you want to keep putting in some new pieces into the attack, and in order to do that, you need to develop those pieces and make sure that your king is safe. So castle kingside, our opponent should play something like knight to f6. This is very common, but after rook to e1, now we're already threatening, let's say, a discovery attack. And I could really end the video here and let you guys just kind of play with it, but I'm going to go a little bit deeper and maybe even show you guys like a sample line. So like rook to e8, for example, is the main move here. If I turned on the computer, I believe it told me to play something like h6, but rook e8 is the main move, and after h6 is not as active as rook e8. So this is a possibility, but it doesn't really stop the discovery attacks. Ooh, excuse me. And after rook to e8, now we can play bishop to e3 with the idea of, well, we're just protecting the bishop, or excuse me, we're protecting the trade of pieces. So like if I were to play like bishop f3, well, now he can take here twice. So we don't want that to happen, right? We don't want to fall into that trap. And we still need to develop our pieces. So in order to do that, we have to play bishop e3 and block this file, because this is the one good thing that black has in his position to kind of defend himself. So after a6, again, this is kind of like a sample line. Here, what white can play here is a very advanced tactic here, and that is knight to d6, which forks the rook and the queen. And it's like, wait a minute, this is free. This is a free knight. So they play c takes d6, but after bishop to f3, now the queen is basically a goner. Like if we play, let's say, queen to h4, well, now bishop to b6, this is checkmate, because of the rook covering that e7 square. So going back, after bishop to f3, the best move in this position, and I'll check it with the computer with you guys, is queen e6. The best move. But now, simply bishop to b6 check again, because of this bad coverage of the c7, or this, excuse me, a5 to d8 diagonal, bad coverage. So after king to e7, now we can play rook takes e6, and I'm sure it is d takes e6, excuse me, and yeah, this is game over. This is lights out. We win the king, we win the queen, the king is unsafe, and this is just no good. So just to go over that again one last time: pawn e4, e5, knight f3, hitting the pawn on e5, knight to c6, the best defense, and now pawn to d4, really just trying to get easy piece play. And the reason why I even highlight this in this video is because I didn't go over this in the past videos, but let's say your opponent does play some weird variation or some passive move that is different and goes off of the old beaten track. So let's say knight to f6 and knight to c3, and he plays, I don't know, something like bishop to e7. Then just know that, I mean, you have nice piece play. This bishop can go to c4, this bishop can go to g5. So even if your opponent gets off track, you're going to have a very easy game, very logical moves, and maybe you can even implement the plan at a faster or better, more efficient rate. You know, any plan. So after queen to h4, our opponent plays very aggressively here, and we have to know this line as white, because if we're playing this and our opponent pops it out and we just lose a pawn for nothing, then we'll actually be worse. So this is one of those lines where you just have to know. You have to know the line exactly. But after knight to c3, thankfully it's really short. Bishop to b4. Now we play the key move, bishop to e2. Don't forget about that. Bishop to e2, blocking the check. That's the whole point. Blocking the check, getting ready for castle, and threatening bishop to f3, which will skewer the queen and the knight, and just stealing all of those central squares. So after queen takes e4, knight to b5, key move. We insert this because now we don't want to trade off pieces. And now b takes c3, b takes c3, and king to d8 only move if you play something silly like queen e5. Now we can play the deflection tactic f4, and the queen moves out of the way, and we take here. So king to d8 is a necessity. And now castle, knight f6. This is just a sample line after rook e1, rook to e8, bishop to e3, key move here, a6, knight to d6, exclam, double exclam, I would say, because now this move kills. Alright, so, and this should be a winning game. So if you guys have, you know, any questions, make sure you comment. And thank you guys for watching this video series. I'm going to try to get in a game with me playing the white pieces, you implementing the Scotch, to show you at a higher level how to win this game. Alright guys, thank you for watching the video, and look out for the next one. Bye.